Ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute pleasure to be hosting this next round of plenary discussion around regional collaboration and capacity exchange in the South Asian region for drone ecosystem. My name is Arun Bhandari. I lead a company called Naxa. We work predominantly on the use of drones for geospatial data acquisition, management, and uses for a variety of sectors. For the next one hour and 10 minutes or so, we will be hearing from a diverse panel of distinguished guests from several nations in the South Asian region, but also from similar drone forums around the globe. We have distinguished guests from Africa and the World Bank. But I would like to start with the objectives of the plenary discussion today. This discussion is going to be primarily around how we can enable South Asian nations to act together to leverage the technology of drones and unmanned vehicles for a harmonized use of these technologies in a variety of sectors, and that would be disaster risk management, climate change adaptation, agriculture, and a lot of other sectors. We know that the South Asian region is similar in a lot of aspects, but also unique country-wise, and we want some harmonization on that front. Before I start the panel discussion itself, I'd like to take this pleasure of inviting our keynote speaker for this event. So we have Mr. David Gruen, who is the consultant to the World Bank on drones. He is also the secretary of the Royal Aeronautical Society. He is also editor of the Global Drone Regulation Database. He has a lot of experience and expertise in drone operation, air traffic management, safety and risk management. He has advised the World Bank in a lot of countries in different projects, countries like Maldives, Bhutan, Nepal, Pakistan, and African region. He also supports drone-driven conservation efforts in a lot of areas. He has contributed to the global drone regulation and safety standards. He's a committed personnel to safety and risk management. He's also the member of JARU's Safety Risk Management Group, and he leads the research for Global Drone Regulation Database. It's an absolute pleasure, but I would also like to add and congratulate David because it's his 30th anniversary. Happy anniversary to David and Camila, and I'm inviting David to the stage.
Namaste. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me for my wedding anniversary. We will have it next week, actually. So where do I lead from there? The first thing is this is exemplary, isn't it? This is what we're about. It's capacity building, collaboration, regional coordination, exchange. And this event is primary in doing that. This is super exciting. And I really thank the team for putting this together. I thank all of you for attending. So, what am I actually talking about? What are we really talking about? We had an excellent presentation from ICAO, a great discussion from our regulators. What I feel we're talking about is those uncertified aircraft. On the top left, you can see the photos, you're right, sorry, the photos of various drones. In fact, that was the African Drone Forum, a similar event to this, which really kick-started activities in Africa. They are smaller, they are uncertified, they operate in two modes, two general modes. They either deliver or pick up, so cargo, or they're used for mapping. These are the two broad areas, and we're talking about civilian operations only, generally. So the mapping and cargo deliveries. We understand these are not certified, right? There's also meant to be a pilot in the loop. There's meant to be a pilot involved in these. There are fully autonomous drones. They are kind of in scope, but not what we're focusing for a start. let's have a look at what's happening in the global world of regulations. There are over 200 countries that I've examined. The World Bank ran a project in Africa. We looked at 55 member states of the African Union at their rules and regulations, and we found that it's a patchwork. And the chart behind me in blue shows regulations. There's over 100 countries in the world that have regulations specific to drones, to UAS. There's also a number of countries that have guidance. There's a number of countries that have soft rules, so not gazetted, hard regulations. The thing this slide does not show is that there is no real harmonization anywhere in the globe outside of Europe. And so I do tend to talk a bit about the European adventure. Before we get to that, we've heard from ICAO the amount of work that's gone into creating standards and recommended practices, and there are 150,000 altogether. But the amount of work, the effort that's been involved in creating these standards, we haven't seen that many aircraft flying in the airspace under IFR, in controlled airspace, in controlled aerodromes. Whereas on the other side of it, we have a whole lot of drone operations. I can't remember the figure in India. I think 26,000 registered remote pilots. We'll hear from EASA in a video after I've finished, and we'll hear the number of remote pilots flying, the number of flights. They're absolutely enormous numbers in comparison. We heard of the ICAO model regulations. These were drafted in 2019. Consultation processes were not easy. While they're robust and they've been adopted in some areas, the adoption rate is quite low. But the study group that's going to go to the next stage, to bring ICAO to the next stage, this advanced air mobility, is the largest study group. The RPAS panel is the largest panel in ICAO. The AAM symposium last night was the largest event that, last year, was the largest event that ICAO has ever run. So this is an enormous ecosystem. However, the adoption for the ICAO regulations, Nepal mentioned, Part 101, Part of 102, Rwanda 2020 had quite different regulations in 2019 and then adopted the ICAO model regulations, plus they added sections on beyond visual line of sight, on security, etc. I work on a World Bank project in Sierra Leone, and Sierra Leone adopted Part 101, 102, exactly as per the ICAO guidance, basically for an audit. They've now drafted regulations that are aligned with the European Union framework, with the 945, 947 we keep hearing about. And I went through those regulations last week. The interesting thing is that they are harmonised with Europe, and the Sri Lankan regulatory framework is harmonised with Europe. So we have a situation where rather than regional harmonisation and standardisation, we now have an operator could operate in Sierra Leone next week, and the week after come to operate in Sri Lanka and have very similar rule sets. And that's really exciting. In the next 5 years, we'll see another rollout from ICAO of guidance text for regulations. Remembering ICAO does not provide SARPS standards that member states must follow for uncertified drones. We'll jump to Europe. You're going to hear an 8.5-minute video from Europe after I finish. 27 member states, 4 extra states, and around the globe there's been these efforts, this interest in aligning to a few areas, mainly the operational categorization. Takata-san showed us this, the open, specific, certified. That is a foundation of all drone regulations. We could talk a long time about drone regulations. We have a fantastic session on day 3 with the CAAs. It's a closed session, and we'll go through that. These European Union regulations, make no mistake, David, there was €1 million spent over the last decade in creating this effort. The 5 years with consultation, with developing the regulations, I actually think I'm a bit lazy and I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I wouldn't like to go through that process. The Europeans have already done it. They have a CESAR, Single European Sky, ATM research project, 19 countries involved, 19 projects at the moment, over 1,000 experts, engagement with every stakeholder, with the public. The outreach has been phenomenal. And that brought us the regulations from 2019-2020. This is now in a review project. There's an organisation called JEDA, the Joint European Drone on these regulations. These regulations will only get better. Actually, I really talked about that now. While that slide's up, though, I will talk about the Federal Aviation Administration. Unfortunately, for various reasons, the FAA of the United States is encumbered with not being able to have international engagement. However, within the FAA, they have a Part 107, which is guidance for visual line of sight operations. They have waivers for airspace authorizations. They have a low altitude approval system called LAANC. If you haven't seen it, have a look at it. Their maps are fantastic. They have 7 test sites across the United States where everything is being trialled. They have regulations for operations over people, for remote identification. Keep remembering that word, remote identification. Super important for how we're going to go forward in final integration into the airspace. So the FAA is very exciting to watch. In the next few months, we will see the Part 108, which is the FAA's approach to beyond visual line of sight. I arrived in Malawi on a World Bank project a couple of years ago, and it was a really exciting project, Drones in Development. When I arrived, as usual, we do an assessment of the drone ecosystem. I had no idea there were 14 components, 14 projects with drone components in country at the time. I knew of a couple of others, and we'd had some collaboration with these. The reason I'm showing you this is because we don't want that. We don't want to have lots of different projects that are not coordinated. We don't want to have rule-making efforts that are not coordinated. It's much better to have some sort of harmonised approach, some sort of way forward. A lot of the work that came from the African Drone Forum, from the World Bank, etc., back in 2020, was on knowledge pieces. There are a lot here. If you want, just message me, and I have a list of the World Bank documents or the links to those documents. It's a really good effort. The one I want to point out here is probably under the chairs to you, and it's called a toolkit. And I've drafted a toolkit for Nepal, for Malawi, for Sierra Leone, Zambia, etc. And the approach on this toolkit is for the regulators and others involved in the rulemaking to consider, to have considerations in how to make rules. How to make rules not only for drones, for UAS, but also for ancillary regulations, for environmental regulations, frequency management, noise, dangerous goods carriage, etc. There's a lot involved in it, and these sort of toolkits provide you with a lot of information. The other part is broader collaboration. We're here, South Asia, it's absolutely terrific. Yet there's a bigger piece happening. The United Nations, World Food Programme and ICAO now have 20 members in a UN group. Come along to the UTM, we'll talk more about SORA, the specific operation risk assessment. Our experts here from the Civil Aviation Authorities have already had workshops on that, which is really good. And I finish with a slide. You'll get these slides, and these are the key takeaways. Keep up the good work. Consider where we are, how we got here. Where do you want to go? How do we get there? Namaste. Thank you very much. And we have the video, we have the video from EASA, please.
Good morning, good afternoon, distinguished high-level representatives of the Ministries of Civil Aviation and Civil Aviation Authorities of South Asia, esteemed colleagues from the World Bank. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. We would have liked to be in person with you, but unfortunately that wasn't possible. But we wouldn't like to miss the opportunity of being with you, at least through a video. My name is Carlos Menendez. I am representing the EU South Asia Aviation Partnership Project 2. I am with Natalia Di Rublo, the Drones Project Manager from EASA. We wanted to walk you through the past achievements from the project and also his perspective from EASA side in the drones domain. The project ended in December 2024 successfully and achieving all its objectives, and we managed to enhance the partnership between the EU and South Asia in the domain of civil aviation. We've been working with South Asia in the domain of civil aviation since December 2016, and we have seen now a lot of progress and a lot of achievements together. One of the main pillars of the project was to deepen the relationship with the civil aviation authorities, and what we did was to offer the EASA regulations as a base for a possible regulation harmonization in the region. We also invited the aviation industry, both from South Asia and the EU, for different domains that were more mature or deserved more presence of the industry. In the project, we covered most aviation domains, and one of them, which was very remarkable, was new technologies. And inside new technologies, of course, we had UAS and UAM, or urban air mobility. We co-organized 2 EU-Asia drone symposiums in Singapore, and we brought main actors from the industry, drones industry, both from South Asia and from the EU, and also from the rest of Asia. And we also had other organizations involved. In the more practical approach, we also dealt with open specific categories and certified categories, covering also SORA, the risk analysis for specific operations, organizing 2 regional workshops in Sri Lanka. So we used the EASA regulations to share our experiences. And now that we have Lino with us, I would like to ask him, what's your impressions? What's the feedback after 4 years of regulations that you have received from both from the industry and the authorities regarding the regulation?
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon. Yeah, after 4 years of implementation of the regulation, we are now in the phase to collect what are the success story, and also what are the area of improvement of the regulation, ready to develop a proposal for changes next year. So we saw that at this moment there are more than 2 million drones operating in Europe, and more than 2 million remote pilots that had a certificate, and more than 3,000 authorization given by using the drone regulation, and so using SORA. So it's quite big numbers, so different compared to what we have with the managed aviation. And we saw that there are some very important elements that we need to keep, like, for example, the registration of the operator, and also the display of the operator number on the drones, and especially on the remote identification system. This is an essential element that has been required by the police all over Europe, and we guess also all over the world. And here we should also have a standardization of how the remote identification has been transmitted. Then also an important element is to inform the operator on the area where they can fly, where they cannot fly, or where they need to have a special authorization to fly. So in Europe, we do this one through geographical zones that are displayed on the maps developed by each state, and they should be provided in a clear way, reminding that we are talking to a different type of stakeholder compared to what we are using in the managed aviation. So the language needs to be adapted. We should also simplify how we are providing the information, and we should also make use of the technology by using as much as possible website or automatic system to feed the information to the operator. So we saw that the different categories, we have a lot of operation for the open category, and we think that we may enable more operation there. So open category, as we remind, is operation where there is no need for authorization from the operator. And we would like to improve a little bit the number of operations by reducing the requirements. Regarding the specific category, we see that the biggest problem is how long it takes for authority to give an authorization. And this is mostly because there is a lack of information by the operator on what is the expectation from the authority. This is why we are developing means of compliance, and we are also asking industry to develop standards that then may be recognized by the different authority, so then the operator have a reference on how to ask for authorization to the competent authority. Another point is also related to those operations that in Europe are under declarative mode. So for example, we call standard scenario. At this moment, we have only 2 operations that are covered by the standard scenario. But now that we get more familiar with the operation, we better understand the level of risk. We think that we may increase this operation, so we may publish in the regulation a new standard scenario covering the majority of the operation conducted in Europe. So these are the elements that we are going to include in the next proposal to the regulation.
So you mentioned that some kind of harmonization in regulation is important. We offer the possibility of that in the project, and we have seen the example of Sri Lanka now publishing the new drones regulation, and also Maldives most likely following suit, and other countries doing the same. And we also deepened our relationship with India as we signed an agreement with them. And we saw that even though we don't call the things the same, the principles are quite similar. You were also mentioning the importance of cooperation between authorities, among authorities and also the industry. How important it is, and how EASA tries to involve different authorities and the industry.
Yeah, we have several forums in which we are discussing with the authority, from JARUS, most of you are also members of JARUS, to all these bilateral discussion with different authorities. And this is essential because it's a new domain where all together we need to learn, and it will be also useful if we use a standardized also a methodology. Like, for example, SORA is giving us now a language on how we can exchange information, and also how operator can operate in different parts of the world using an approach that can be quickly understood by the other authority, and then they can recognize the authorization giving from an authority or another part of the world.
Yeah, I think it's essential to learn from each other, and we see that sometimes the industry is even a little bit ahead of the authorities, so to have a good dialogue, a constructive dialogue, is very important. So I think this opportunity that you're having now is essential for the continuation of this initiative in the region. So we encourage you to take advantage of it, and also to try to continue the engagement with EASA. There will be a new cooperation project with the region, and you will be informed. But I invite you to also cooperate with other very important stakeholders, such as the World Bank, and to move forward together. Our message would be, please continue making this effort and make it together as a region, cooperating with the rest. And having said that, we wish you all the best for this event, and thank you very much for the opportunity of being here.
Thank you, Mr. David Guerin, for the keynote speech. We got to know a lot about the worldview of how regulatory harmonization is happening and where the gaps are, but also for the very interesting video on the EU and South Asia collaboration for drone aviation. So I'd like to, I think this sets up the stage quite well for David and the panelists, rest of our panelists to carry forward the program. First of all, I'd like to invite David to kindly be seated on the stage while I introduce my panelists. We have Mr. Razbikram Maharjan from Nepal Drone Association. If you are here, kindly join me on stage. We also have Mr. Smit Shah, President of Drone Federation of India. We have Ms. Napile Muku, Senior Instructor, African Drone and Data Academy. We have Mr. Tausiful Islam, CEO, ANTS Aerial Systems, Bangladesh. We also have a virtual speaker joining us remotely, Ms. Catalina Ocha, Senior Transport Specialist for the World Bank. Hi, Catalina. I hope you can hear us. And finally, Mr. Iganuari Thomas, who's also the organizer the disaster risk management specialist for the World Bank and the key member from the organizing team. It's a pleasure to have you all here. Hi, Catalina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you. Welcome again, panelists. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to take this opportunity to maybe start with the Nepal ecosystem. Am I audible? Yeah. Starting with Raz, you've been a drone entrepreneur, have a variety of challenging undertakings with drones in Nepal, but also you're leading as the founder president for the Nepal Drone Association. What, in your opinion, when you're tackling the challenges posed by the difficult terrain in Nepal and also the regulatory and policy difficulties we have here, what are the key challenges that you face every day? What are the opportunities and also lessons that you want to share across the nations that Asia region? Starting with you.
Thank you so much for the question. So hello everybody, my name is Raz Bikram Maharzan. I am the co-founder at Airlift and also a founding chairman at Nepal Drone Association. So we've been involved with the drone since 2015. My background, myself, I'm an aeronautical engineer. I completed my bachelor's degree in aeronautical in 2014 from China, from Shenyang Aerospace University. And shortly after that, I came back to Nepal and I joined Himalaya Airlines as an aircraft technician. And it was around that time when Nepal got struck with this huge earthquake, and it was a really devastating earthquake. And so I think that disaster also brought this opportunity for drone enthusiasts, and that was, I think, the first time where drones were widely used, even though it was first used for anti-poaching campaign, but the widely used use cases were during this earthquake time. And shortly after that, again, civil aviation, they issued regulatory where drones were kind of prohibited to fly, and mostly to stop these random drones from flying in restricted areas, right? But even with that difficult regulation, there were drone enthusiasts and drone hobbyists and people working in the drone ecosystem. They were working from that side. And finally, I think in 2019, we had a regulation, a proper regulation from both civil aviation and from Home Ministry. And so far, we've been using that regulation for all the works that we've been doing. And coming back from 2019 till 2025, it has been a very arduous and difficult journey. But again, with this difficult journey, it has also been very equally, creating a lot of opportunities for a lot of organizations here. Mostly, as you mentioned about the terrain in Nepal, first of all, disaster was a very good use case for drones, right? Because it was used, I personally used my own DIY drone, right, for the inspection, damage inspection. Up until then, I was, flying drone just as a toy. It was just as a hobby. But the disaster and the use case made me realize it's a life-saving tool, and I think more could be done with this technology. And 2019 regulation also helped me establish Airlift. It was only because of that regulation I got the confidence to start my own venture, so I started Airlift shortly after that. And though the regulation helped me start the company, and many other companies also formed from that regulation, still there are a lot of regulatory challenges, let's say about the BVLOS, like beyond visual line of sight, and the flying drones in the nighttime, or flying drones in the crowded areas. I think there are still these kind of challenges where we have to, I think, tackle. But at the same time, having these regulations is also very important, because if we keep it very free and open, I think it can also be, people might misuse that opportunity. So having this regulation, we require it, but again, we also need enough space for innovation to happen. Right?
Thank you, and it's a quite interesting case for Nepal that the use of drones accelerated after the 2015 earthquake, when a lot of using drones as a hobby, but then later to tackle important problems. I'd like to then proceed to Mr. Smitsa from the Drone Federation. We also heard from the previous panelist that India has progressed a lot in terms of having policies and regulatory frameworks in place. I would like to know more from you on how the experience has been in establishing a lot of things like drone corridors, digital platforms for registration, certifications, and so on. So as a leader, maybe in the South Asia, India could share us a lot of lessons.
Thank you for the question and thank you for having me over. Special thanks to Government of Nepal, World Bank and various partners who have helped make this very important event become a reality and for all of us to sit together. I want to just reflect upon two aspects in my remarks. First is the scale of drone technology and the use, especially in India, and how it can be leveraged by other countries. When we look at use of drones in India, we have a project called Swamitva project, under which 300,000 villages of the country have been surveyed, digital land records have been created, and property cards have been distributed to people. 300,000 villages. We have another project called large scale mapping, in which different states of the country are being mapped. The entire base map of the state is being recreated based on drone based imagery, so that every single decision making, right from land use, land plan, revenue collection, utility planning, urban infrastructure, rural development, all of it will be done on this base map. And to give you the scale of this activity, just one of the smallest states in the country has undertaken this activity for 30,000 square kilometers. One single state. We also briefly heard about a project called Drone Didi. In this, 15,000 women self-help groups, 2 women per self-help group. So 30,000 women are going to be trained on agriculture spraying drones, the piloting and the maintenance and repair of it. Further, these 30,000 women in groups of 2, so 15,000 drones will be deployed, where government will take care of 80% of the cost of the drone and the accessories. And for the 20% cost, there is going to be a loan. So imagine if a drone was worth 800,000 some currency, 80% of this cost is covered by government. So rest of the 160,000 number, for this number, 90% of this amount is given as loan. So eventually the women self-help group gives only 16,000 rupees, and all of the other component is covered either through subsidy or through loans. So that is about ground level sort of deployment. About 220,000 kilometers of national highways across the country are mapped or videographed once a month for operations and maintenance compulsorily. And for every single new highway or every single new railway that is being put, land acquisition and construction monitoring happens only with drones. In fact, it has gone to a point where the body that is undertaking construction will only be paid if they submit a drone survey. About 1,200 mining sites across the entire country use drones at least once per year as a mandatory compliance requirement. So when you look at mines, basically there are a lot of compliances with respect to lease boundary, the width of the road, the slope of the road, it's called haul road and benches basically. Essentially every single part that is extracted in the mine or every road that is created, there are technical regulations for that due to safety and a lot of other issues. Drones are accepted as a compulsory use, mandatory use for an annual requirement. So there are 1,200 mining sites, and by the way, we are advocating for this compulsion to become at least once a quarter, and in 3 years of time, at least once a month. Eventually, in 2 to 3 years of time, it's possible today as well, but in about 2 to 3 years of time, the mining inspector who should be responsible for these compliances will be sitting in an AC office in front of a desktop. If he is very interested in looking at it, he maybe will put a VR glass and he will be in the digital twin with centimeter level accuracy of the mine. and will be able to verify compliances, if not just by desktop data, but also by the actual feel. So that is the kind of use that is happening in the country. And lastly, there are 60 urban local bodies or municipal corporations which are taking 3D mapping of urban areas as a pilot project. Once the pilot project is over, this is going to get scaled to 2,000 urban local bodies. Every single decision that will be taken by the urban local body with respect to, again, planning, utilities, sanitation, garbage collection, every single thing, including revenue collection, all of it will only happen based on a drone-based high-resolution map. So that is the scale of operations on which about 550 plus companies who we represent in the country are operating. And of course, we also heard from our DGCA official about the 105 drone models that are type certified, 31,000 plus drones that have been registered, 165 DGCA authorized drone training schools. My numbers may be off by about 5% or so, and 26,000 plus drone pilots that have been registered. Now, these numbers look very massive. And if you go on the path of case-by-case approval or SORA or operator-driven risk identification, risk mitigation, and then verification of that by the regulator, the scale of use cases, in my personal opinion, cannot come, because if not now, at some point when the requirement will scale, the regulator will run out of physical manpower to do this. The scale at which manned aircraft was operating, typically in India, we see that at any given point of time, if I'm looking up in the sky, there are about 2,000 to 3,000 manned aircrafts that are overflying in the country. My planning for drones has to start with a couple of thousand units and has to scale up to a couple of 100,000 units. So when we were advocating for ease of doing business and regulations, and this is the most important point, second part of what I wanted to leave with to everyone, we said that regulations have to absolutely not compromise safety and security, but have to be dumbed down such that you have to be able to explain the regulation in one, maximum 2 slides. If the regulations are not very well bucketed, very well classified, categorized, and not explained in 1 or 2 slides, you are going to have a very difficult position where when the use cases start scaling, there will be a whole lot of industry players who want to comply, who are trying to work with the regulation, and there is a whole bunch of parallel ecosystem which does not want to comply. They will just buy a photography drone, start doing surveying and mapping, start flying somewhere else. And the regulator, because it's a civil aviation regulator, rightly so, will not have the ground level reach like a police official or a law enforcement official to catch people individually. And these people who are being caught individually, they are not criminals. They are either careless or clueless people. So, which is why when we were advocating for policy, and just as a thought experiment, I will leave this last point with everyone. We believe that any drone regulation in any country can be solved in a 3x3 matrix. You look at safety, security, and privacy, the three rows, and you look at 3 columns, which is drone pilot, and uninvolved person. And the intersection of this 3x3 grid is where mandates have to be defined. And then once this is ready, you develop a regulation on that. And I'll give you a simple example. So I mentioned safety, security, and privacy, and drone pilot, and uninvolved person. So when you talk about the intersection of drone and safety, how do we handle that in India? Every drone model except 250 grams or non-commercial up to 2 kgs, nano or micro, has to be type certified. Type certification means that the drone model by the manufacturer has undergone certain tests, has undergone certain flight tests, and is complying to basic compulsory safety requirements. If a drone model has gone under type certification, it has to be deemed safe. So there is safety of the drone. How do you handle safety of the drone pilot? Every single pilot who is operating a drone, except for, again, nano or micro non-commercial, there are some exemptions like the automotive segment. When I want to ride a car, I have to have a driving license, but when I want to ride a bicycle, I don't really need a driving license. Similarly, some drones are exempt. When you talk about the safety and the drone pilot, every single drone pilot mandated to fly a drone has to undergo a training from a DGC authorized training school. So that is the safety of the drone pilot. And the safety of the uninvolved person is by requirement of third-party liability insurance. You can have a safe car, you can have a driving license, the person can be trained, but finally some untoward incident can still lead to a pedestrian having some damage. Insurance is the only way that can cover for that damage in real life, apart from everything that the regulation can do. And it has been solved for civil aviation, transportation, and many other sectors. What about security? Every single drone that is to be flown in the national boundary has to be registered. The person who's registering it, his antecedents, national ID and all of that has to be captured, which means essentially when a drone is identified with the serial number, you will be able to find out who this drone was under the ownership. So that is security by drone. And security by drone pilot again is the person who is going to undertake drone pilot's training and certification will essentially be having his national ID and police verification or security clearance or whatever. Recently, we have done away with the requirement of passport in India. Alternate national IDs are also being accepted. Security of the uninvolved person is basically the uninvolved person will essentially know what is an area where drones will be flying, what is an area where drones will not be flying. If an uninvolved person, which is a national security agency or a sensitive public administration person who's not directly involved in the drone operation, doesn't want drones to invade from a security purpose, they can just mark it as a red zone and drones will not be allowed to fly there unless an explicit permission has been granted. And finally, I talk about privacy. Privacy, I believe, is an unending kind of subject. You can't really govern privacy only by regulation. Imagine a scenario for a country which has densely populated, regions like India, and you say that, we have to implement privacy and everyone who's flying drones needs to take consent of people below. I mean, it looks to be very good on paper, but it's practically never possible. So privacy has to be dealt with how it is being dealt for digital cameras. I have the physical ability to walk inside this room, use a digital camera to click your photo. There is some basic education, ethics, and awareness that has to be undertaken. Apart from regulations, regulations will only stay alive for privacy on paper. They're very important. They need to be dealt with. But apart from that, a large group of stakeholder awareness and the very impact of how drones can invade privacy, what it can do, so that specifically the careless and the clueless people, not the criminals, the careless and the clueless people are well aware and they design their operations such that they don't invade privacy by intention. So I believe that any regulatory problem in brief can be solved by this 3x3 matrix. Of course, it is a model for thinking about regulations, not literally writing the draft. But if this 3x3 matrix is solved, law enforcement agencies, national civil aviation regulatory authorities and industry will be able to come together and say, you know what, this is the mechanism to solve it, rather than going round and round. Also, this 3x3 matrix will help very clearly for people coming out of an engineering institute, trying to start a drone company, very clearly understand what can I do, what I cannot do. If I can do something, what am I required to do on behalf of that? So that is what I leave with. One very last point. We have done a lot of work in India. You see a lot of drone models being type certified, a lot of drone training schools, a lot of drone operations coming in. There are 550 plus companies who are supporting this. We will be very happy to have an international cooperation and get all of this experience and technical expertise to various countries that are participating here today, so that we can create a holistic partnership and we can bring in technology and experience to countries and scale up operations in those countries. So that would be my last thought if I don't get the opportunity again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. It was fascinating learning about the scale of use of drone technology in India across different infrastructure projects, monitoring, construction, as well as agriculture, and the interesting case of Drone Didi and the government collaboration there. I think there's a lot of things we can learn from the practical use of India, and also to your great suggestions around how this can be methodically solved using a matrix or simplifying drone regulations so that it can be boiled down to a few slides. Thanks again for those insights. I now want to move on to Ms. Napile Mpu because I want to touch a different aspect. We're talking about regional collaboration, where we also had a question, I think from yourself earlier, about how do drone operators and certified people get to work across borders. And I think your experience working as a senior instructor at the African Drone and Data Academy is quite interesting for us to explore how the experience has been creating these skilled manpower and how the academy has built capacity across nations and how that is being shared in the African region.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Well, my name is Ndabile and I'm a senior instructor at the African Journal and Data Academy. And I'm just going to share a few points on how the ADDA has helped in terms of building technical capacity across Africa when it comes to drones and data technology. So in the beginning, how ADDA came about was to generally bridge the gap that existed when it comes to youth being able to use drones. So there was a project initially under UNICEF where they were trying to map out a cholera outbreak. When the project was actually meant to be implemented, they realized that they didn't have the technical capacity in country for the mapping exercise to actually take place. So with that in mind, UNICEF and other stakeholders came together, worked with different universities from the US, so Virginia Tech and Furman University, to come up with a comprehensive curriculum that could help bridge this gap, not only for the Malawian population, but also across Africa, because the gap existed across the continent. I've mentioned external universities, but it's also important to understand that context is very important when it comes to coming up with training material. So they work together with the Malawi University of Science and Technology to host the African Journal and Data Academy. But over time, they also understood the importance of sustainability. So how do you sustain such programs? So you sustain such programs by training trainers, which is why I'm here. I was part of the program where the universities built a training of trainer module where not only were the people in country providing education in drones and data to the local population, but also bringing in a more local perspective. Because how drones are used in the United States or in South Asia may not be the same way that drones are used in Kenya or Malawi. So it's important to bring in those aspects when it comes to building capacity. So with that, we've been able to train more than 900, roughly, 900 young people across Africa, across 29 countries, actually. 29 countries where we're reaching out to, in part, 21st century skills, as we like to put it. And then that was in 2020. Came COVID, which I'm sure all affected us in some way. But it was a blessing in disguise because that way we're now able to reach more people because our training was now divided into two sections where we had the online program and then the in-person training as well. So for the online program, we're now focusing on using the data because drones is not only about flying, right? It's about being able to use the information and make informed decisions with the relevant stakeholders. So there's that part that's delivered online and also just the physics behind flights because we don't only want to build drone pilots that are the end user, but also being able to understand the technicalities on how this thing is flying. So just making sure that people understand the physics behind that. So in addition to that, the ADDA has also tried to scale across different countries because we can only take so much and we want this technology to reach everyone. Because as it's very evident that drones are being used in various sectors and it's important that people have access to this information because we're living in a digital world. So we've been trying to scale across different countries, Ethiopia being one of them. We tried Niger, but things didn't work out over there. And again, we took the same approach where we're training trainers. So instructors from those countries would come to Malawi and go through the different curriculums and then see how they can then take this material and then deliver it in a way that works for them with the involvement of their civil aviation authorities because again, the regulations are different across different countries as well. And I'll be doing the ADD injustice so I don't talk about entrepreneurship, right? Because as youth, at least in Malawi or in Africa, the job opportunities aren't great. So it's really now up to you to make do. And drone technology has done a great job in creating these jobs. I think one of the speakers this morning talked about the creation of, I think, 500, if not 5,000 job opportunities. So that's the same thing that's happening. So just being able to make sure that these jobs are created and making sure that the funds are also there. Because you can give people knowledge, but if they don't have access to resources or funds, the knowledge is really just sitting. Because drones are not cheap, we all know that. Drones are pretty expensive. So we've tried to come up with a program where we're incubating ideas, where if you have a solution that's using drones and data technology or just technology in general, you can undergo an incubation program where you undergo mentorship and and then come up with a prototype and see how viable it actually is in the market. Another thing that we like to, I guess, build on is the diversity that regional collaborations bring about. So our classrooms don't only consist of Malawis, it consists of Nigerians, it consists of Kenyans, South Africans, and being in a room, I'm sure being in a room that has diverse people with different backgrounds, that brings about different ways of thinking. It broadens our horizon and how we're looking at things. You're able to understand how different countries are approaching different things using the same technology, and you can easily adopt that in your operations in country. So our classrooms are very diverse. There's a lot of innovation that's going on due to the collaborations and diverse backgrounds. And we also know that we're not only dealing with one educational background. So our students are either engineers, if not engineers, they're into data, if not data, journalism. So our curriculum is built in a way that we ensure that people understand the value that drones and data bring. So our use cases are not only in flood management, they are also in network analysis. What can a network engineer do with GIS or drone data? So just ensuring that we're talking to everyone is one of the ways that we've been able to build capacity as well. So basically we're building regional or continental talent pipeline. I can assure that you wouldn't be able to walk in a room in Africa at least, and that is talking about drones and data technology and not meet an ADDA graduate. And I believe that we've done a good job in reaching out, and we've equipped our students to also then have this trickling down aspect where they're opening up their own institutions as well. We have one in Botswana where they've opened up their own training institution. So just empowering one person is basically empowering a different nation that's a different nation that they can also reach out to. So ideally, that's what we're doing in capacity building. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's quite interesting how you bring together young people from different countries in the region and collectively educate, train them, but also that leads to entrepreneurship around drones. It's very interesting, and we could, I think, today we can envision that someday we'll have a South Asian drones and data academy here as well. Thank you again. Next up, we have Mr. Tausiful Islam as a CEO of a drone-based company, ANTS Aerial Systems. My question to you would be around what barriers do you face as an entrepreneur using drones in business operations when you try to scale out across countries in the region? Do you face barriers? How has the experience been in general?
Right, thank you for the question. So my name is Tausif. I am the co-founder of ANTS Aerial Systems. We are a full-stack drone tech company based out of Bangladesh. So coming back to your question, I think the biggest barrier to operate regionally would be the lack of regulatory harmonization. I think David touched quite a bit on that. But each country has its own framework of regulations, some mature, some still evolving. And this fragmentation is actually, it causes an uncertainty for companies like ours, which are trying to operate cross-border missions. Secondly, one of the biggest issues that we also face is the lack and the lack of interoperability of drone standards, be it hardware specifications, licensing requirements, or just data handling protocols when it comes to drone standards. And this lack of standardization slows down collaboration, especially in industries like disaster management, where collaboration has to be seamless. And thirdly, of course, the industry is growing, but still there is a sheer lack of technical reviewers, trained personnel, service providers. So capacity is still at scarce, it's growing, but capacity and trust is still not at its peak. So this makes governments and regulators feel like cross-border missions are risky and, of course, very slow. So I think in order to address these issues, the most important measure that we need to take regionally is to actually establish a regional public-private knowledge hub whereby companies like ours, regulators, government agencies, academia have to come in and share their resources and sort of collab on drone standards and operations in general. Secondly, there could be a shared regional regulatory sort of sandbox whereby government regulators and startups sort of collaborate on cross-border missions and experiment with different forms of missions and how we can actually undergo safe testing of drones made elsewhere. And finally, I think one of the important aspects that we can touch on is the need of the procurement process in terms of, say, drone services or in general drone purchases. If there is a common regional platform whereby government agencies and companies can co-invest in research and development, that would actually enable us to pursue joint projects. So yeah, I think this could be a great start in terms of, since we are actually improving our industry in terms of we're trying to catch up with the rest of the world. So pursuing these three measures, I think could help us stand out.
Thank you so much. You've led to key topics that I think we can take this forum to actually make it more concrete. The need for a regional public-private knowledge hub, a resource where you can actually talk about research needs to harmonize drone data standards, regulations, and also the important point around procurement across the region. That has been, I think, the few practical yet important aspects that you've touched. Thank you again for that. Up next, I would want to connect with Catalina, if you're still listening to us. Can you confirm?
Hi, yes, I'm here, I'm connected. I'm struggling a little bit with the systems, but if you hear me well, I can come in now.
Sure, thank you. It would be a pleasure if we could see your video, but nevertheless, I'll go ahead. So your experience with the African Drone Forum, because it's also a role model for regional dialogue What would your suggestions be around the key elements that the South Asia drone ecosystem should consider if we were to create a similar platform here?
Thank you so much for the question. And I apologize for the issues with the camera. I'm not sure what the Teams is doing to me, but thanks for this question. I think this is a very exciting conversation, and I can see from what I hear in this panel that South Asia is at this really pivotal moment in drones. So very exciting time. I think that the main lessons from the African Drone Forum was that it was not just a regional conversation, but a platform for bringing together policymakers, regulators, innovators, and communities. I think this is a good start, and I can see how there's representation from all this group in this conference. So congratulations to the organizing team. I would say there are 5 lessons from the work that we've done in Africa that I would like to highlight. The first one is the importance of regional collaboration, and harmonization starts with collaboration, but national leadership is very important. In Africa, there's organizations like CASOA that have helped coordinate, but still the leadership rested in the national civil aviation authorities. It is important that each country feels the ownership. No, for instance, Nepal could take the lead on mountain logistics, and Bangladesh might champion airspace management in dense urban environments. And India, we heard from one of the speakers how it has a very fast evolving drone industry and regulatory experience. So, so the key here, I think, is that national leadership is very important. And that this platform should go beyond aviation, bring together health ministries, agriculture, disaster response, education, private sectors, all need to be in the room, because drones are not a transport issue only. It's a key development tool. The second lesson, I think, is that harmonizing regulation is very important. We also just heard it from the last speaker. There's no need to force uniformity. I don't think we can aim here to get the level of harmonization of Europe, but fragmentation is for sure a big obstacle. We heard from the drone operators that working across countries in South Asia with different frameworks, approval time, compliance cost is complicated. So it's not about one size fits all, but about interoperability, shared standards for things like drone registration, pilot licensing, basic operational categories, and eventually mutual recognition of certifications. And this doesn't have to be super complex, but it just has to be, in my opinion, aligned enough to reduce friction and enable those cross-border operations. I think that the third lesson would be the focus from the African Drone Forum would be the focus on real world use cases. I think one of the successes of the African Drone Forum was that it just didn't talk in general about drones, but it really showed them into action, like through flying competitions, delivery missions, live demos. And I think in South Asia, there's already a lot of promising pilots. So it is this application that should anchor a regional platform, so South Asia, showing people that what is possible and pushing the regulators and the investors to respond to that real demand. Then the fourth lesson would be about building public trust, and I think to everybody in this forum, they're familiar with the topic, no, and how. We know technology moves fast, but it's important not to leave the public out because technology causes fears and causes resistance and can actually stall progress substantially. So I think one of the critical elements that we pick out from the African Drone Forum was the need to have community engagement and transparency. People want to know, no, and it's natural, no, are drones safe? Are they invading my privacy? Are they just for big companies, or would they help my village too? What are the risks? So a regional platform must also be a platform for dialogue and engaging civil society. If you get this right, I think was a key lesson from the African Reform. If you get it right, you create not just acceptance, but a lot of enthusiasm around it. And then finally, I think that there's a practical opportunity on regional cooperation to share infrastructure, share training, and share innovation ecosystem that can really accelerate progress by pooling efforts. So thinking about shared training programs for drone pilots or joint testing corridors or regional traffic management sandbox. And these are the kind of things that are being piloted in Africa that could be also done in South Asia. So yeah, I think this a South Asia drone platform can be host to these challenges, showcases, innovation, and bring together all the ecosystem. So just to wrap up, I don't think you have to aim for the perfect framework for collaboration, but just a platform that helps share the lessons and bring everybody together. I think that's already a great start. Thank you.
Thank you, Catalina. Thanks for your time and the insights around how things have worked elsewhere and how we are posed with this opportunity to start something similar and also resolve some of the issues that the other panelists have raised earlier. Thank you again for your time. We'd love to connect with you again later during the question and answer sessions if anyone has queries for you. And next on, finally, we have Mr. Igunuari Thomas. He is the disaster risk management specialist at the World Bank. And I think for him, my question would be around how do you see drones being used as disaster management, technology against disaster management, disaster risk management, climate change adaptation, and how it can be systematically integrated across the different nations who have similar geographies, similar problems, and how do you see, as a specialist in drone disaster risk management, the use of drones being happening in this region?
Yeah, thank you very much, Aaron. And thank you for the previous speakers that have also highlighted, what some of the opportunities could be, on regional collaboration. But I think, from a technical standpoint, I think, the World Bank itself is uniquely positioned because of, the kind of work we do and how we're able to work across various countries, right? So, for example, in Nepal here, I do a lot of work, of course, on disaster risk management. After the Jajakot earthquake, we worked with the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Authority, and we deployed drones to help assess the damage and how that information can be used to inform a detailed damage assessment on the ground, right? Similarly, also, when we work on transport infrastructure, irrigation, and water resource management infrastructure as well, given the vulnerability of Nepal, of course, to various disasters from floods, landslide, earthquakes, we always tend to assess the resilience of this infrastructure, from the design phase, even during implementation and operation as well. So in these different elements, we apply various geospatial technology, but drones tend to be one that is widely applied in Nepal because satellite has some deficiencies, in different areas, especially when you want to be able to detect specific details that you could use in designing infrastructure projects. The same thing also applies also in India. I work on a transport project in Assam, right? And resilience, of course, is an important element. I think in 2022, there was also some serious flood and landslide that affected the road. So we need to do geotechnical surveys. We need to look at how most of these hill cutting activities are happening and looking at how overall the landscape is changing. So in terms of the technicalities, most countries in South Asia have similar challenges on how disaster needs to be addressed, and I think drone technology tends to be one of those tools that can be used to help generate insight. In Pakistan, I also work on the Sindh Housing Reconstruction Project, where drone technology is also, I think, an important element when we're looking at how we can make settlements more resilient. So given that most of the settlements were affected by, I think, 2022 flood as well, So how do you rebuild and build back better to make sure that, if similar occurrence occurs in the future, those new settlements will not be affected by the flood again? So in all of these aspects, of course, beyond the design also, how do you monitor implementation to ensure compliance to building standards, right, to make sure these buildings are resilient? So these are, several aspects where drone technology has been applied in the type of work that we do. But I think this is what has also built the necessity for this type of program, this kind of events that we're having, because with the similarities that occur, then we also see that, okay, there are opportunities to also leverage their experiences across various countries and have conversations, of course, around the regulation, which is an important one, but also around the technical capacity building as well. Because for Nepal, for instance, most of our operation here evolved as a result of the challenges that we also faced working with the stakeholders as well, right? Trying to maybe deploy a drone immediately after a disaster and finding out that it's going to take you maybe 20 days to be able to go to the field. And before then, all of the evidences you are trying to get on the ground is already gone. And someone can say, oh, I had a house here, it was washed away, but there's no way for you to be able to verify that, especially if you want to take up reconstruction efforts. So I think these types of things are important, that we learn from each other and make sure that as we're developing regulations, we try to, of course, get the best from what everyone is doing, but also learn from their mistakes as well to make sure that, we can leapfrog and not, it won't take us 5 years to get to where, another, partner country, for instance, has already leapfrogged. So, we can learn from each other and be able to move faster. So I think my main advice, I guess, would be that, we take this opportunity to engage with each other, learn from what we are all doing, and also look at how we can take some of those best practices and integrate into what we are doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for I think, your insights on how drones have been and can be used more effectively in disaster risk management, but also some of the problems that we have seen around how policy and regulatory difficulties have often led to a lag in deployment of a tool that is very much effective, or swift deployment could have happened. With that, I would request the audience to maybe prepare with one or two questions that we can take at the end of the session. Before we take the questions from the audience, I'd like to go back to our keynote speaker, David Guerin. If you have some insights on how this forum can actually be, what are the opportunities to actually initiate something on a regional level, the collaboration as we're focused now.
That is a great question. Thank you. We heard from Catalina before with the outcomes of the African Drone Forum. That's 5 years ago. And we learned a lot through that. I actually like to turn the question back to everyone here and to think, what does this look like in 5 years? I can give you ideas of what I think it can look like, but where do we go to next? Do we stay in South Asia? The project is Nepal-based, but regional. Does this engage further outside of South Asia? I'm not answering questions, I'm asking questions. The ICAO region is quite large. It's the Asia-Pacific region. Next door is Central Asia, Southeast Asia. There are enormous numbers of opportunities for drone operations. What I think, to answer that, what I think this goes to next is establishing a framework, perhaps a work group, continual engagement with these stakeholders. We're going to hear later on from We Robotics and the efforts elsewhere. There are groups who are making good change, great change, and that can work with this effort as well. We bring up funding all the time. Funding is always going to be a challenge, but you've seen what's happened here with more interest, with more stakeholders. I think more can happen. Can I ask a question or make another statement?
Sure.
From India before, we had Smith talking about the numbers of drone operations, and I actually am really surprised and impressed. And I know there's huge numbers in China as well. when you have a lot of use cases, the really popular use cases, what we're doing through JARA, Joint Authorities on Rulemaking right now, is we're designing predetermined risk assessments. It's plug and play. We're designing predetermined operations manuals. So you can, as an operator or a pilot, you can just make sure you've got the correct platform that fits into that. Your operations manual is exactly as per the templates that we're preparing. And it's pointless preparing these operations manuals and risk assessments for use cases that are uncommon. But if it's the common one, we could do that. We also have different ideas on ground risk for areas where there's not a huge number of resources. The reason I bring those options up is because this forum, this event, could be the catalyst to implement those, to have groups to assess their viability, what the stakeholders want. And I said it before, and I do like it. Where are we now? How do we get here? Where do we want to go? How do we get there? And let's do that together.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you for reflecting back the questions to us again, because we're going to be the stakeholders moving forward. If we continue engagement, I think we can lead to something more beautiful. Moving on to the audience, if anybody has questions, we are open. Please target your question to specific speaker, if you can. Yeah, please, somebody.
Hello. Thank you. First of all, good afternoon to everyone. So probably my question would be best suited for the Mr. Tausif, I think, as he is more into the R&D. So as we are progressing into this forum, that we came to learn that drone technologies or implementation of drone comes with a lot of problems and challenges. Probably it's in the policy or regulations, or as well as in the technology that has been used in the drones. So, and still the drone technology is not matured enough. So moving on to that, so as a researcher and innovator myself, I'm really concerned that the advancement in drone technology being limited by the pace at which we are solving these kind of problems in the regulations and policies. So as a research, as a R&D team, Mr. Tausif, how did you tackle these kind of problems in the early days, and what's your status currently in Bangladesh? Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you for the question. So I think one of the most interesting and important things that our questionnaire has suggested and talked about is that research and development in this field is strongly limited by regulations, and rightly so. As Raj mentioned, that if we do not regulate this, misuse is very much possible, and that brings about a lot of risks as well. So I think for demographics where the regulations is not well established, the need of forums like this stands out. So once there is a centralized forum for any country, you understand that the government has now a body to go to in order to discuss and sort of collaborate on the regulations. And that also opens up lots of wide avenues of research and development. So now this body, the forum body, can actually advocate for you to give you the space and the resources that you might need to pursue, say, a drone business or just R&D in general in this area. So I think there has to be for us as well. We actually got quite a lot of support from our government, even though drone regulations weren't very mature back when we were starting in 2019, and we got a phenomenal amount of support from academia. So that sort of helped us propel and create an MVP. And once the MVP was ready and we actually employed it to industry, and we started getting positive outcomes of it, you sort of see these regulations start to build up because we're actually getting positive outcomes from it. So I think that being said, local forums as well as those within the region are extremely important if we want to propel R&D in this sector. Thank you.
One more. We have a few minutes. Yeah, please.
My question is to Mr. Smith Shah. You pointed out that drone pilots or other individuals normally can be careless, clueless, and may also be criminals. Now there's a question about what happens if someone is careless and clueless with drones in Nepal, or if someone does a criminal offense. And also there's now a question about regional collaboration. And for example, if a Nepali is careless and clueless in India, then what is like the penalty? How should it be pointed out? Or similar, like this is also a case where we have open borders, so transportation drivers in both countries are free to travel, but there are cases where people become careless and clueless, and also there are criminal offenses. So there's now a question about how to regulate, how to penalize, or how to make aware both sides pilots.
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. I think my answer will be very surprising for you. Enough laws exist in every country for you to be penalized and booked under various offenses for criminal use of drones. It may not be a drone law, but carriage of explosives, dropping crackers in a public event and all of that. There are enough laws that already exist to catch hold of people who are intending to sort of create chaos and undertake criminal activities and all. They may not be under drone laws, but anything and everything that is being misused illegally, and there are 12, 15 different types of misuses that can be taken, can already be booked and can already be solved. I mean, imagine someone, and I'm just giving it as an example, imagine someone takes a photography drone and hooks up a simple firecracker and drops it on a public place. Of course, he can be booked in existing laws. So it is this mindset of educating people on the misuse of drones with the criminal intent and making an example out of them, versus a separate mindset of dealing with careless and clueless people through, of course, enforcement. When I'm talking about careless and clueless people, I'm nowhere advocating for not penalizing them, but the goal of the penalty should be to make them realize of the mistake and make sure that it should not repeat again, as well as couple this with awareness activities and education activities so that you can clearly show the intent of the regulator as well of going very hard on people who are with criminal intent versus having a slightly passionate approach for clueless and other people. So basically enough laws exist to prosecute people. Specifically in terms of India, as of now, you need to be an Indian citizen to fly drones in the country. I think forums like this will help basically expand this all across and bring that interoperability as well, where residents from other countries will be able to come to India and we will be able to go to other locations and fly very seamlessly. Yeah, that is the two parts of what I want to say.
All right. You've been wonderful, and also to the panelists and keynote speaker. Before I let you go, I want to pass on the token of love through our distinguished guest, Mr. Dev Chandra Lalkarna, Deputy Director General, CAN, to please come over the stage and hand over the token of love. I'd like to start with our keynote speaker, David Gruen. Can you move to? Thank you. Mr. Smith Shah, President, Drone Federation, India. Mr. Raz Bikram Maharzan, Chairperson, Nepal Drone Association. Ms. Napile Mku, Senior Instructor, African Drone Data Academy. Mr. Tausifu Islam, CEO, ANS Aerial Systems, Bangladesh. Mr. Iguniwari Thomas, Disaster Risk Management Specialist, the World Bank. Thank you, and apologies to Catalina. We are not able to hand it to you physically, but much appreciated.
Save it for me. Thank you. Thank you so much for accommodating.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. With that, thank you all the panelists and the keynote speaker. I'm sure the audience would love to catch up with you later. With that, I'm formally announcing that this is the end of this session. But important notice before leaving the hall, there's going to be a lunch break after this. But after the lunch break, we are resuming the program with 4 breakout rooms, sessions happening parallelly. There are, as you have already registered, hopefully everyone, in the morning when you came here, there are 4 tracks happening. The track A is focused on planet, water, environment, and agriculture. It's happening on the backside of this main hall. The track B is going to happen in the front side of the main hall, and it's around infrastructure, transport, energy, urban development, and disaster risk management. The track C is going to happen on the Godavari Hall. You can see the name, and it's around human development, health, and education. The final track D is going to happen in Kirtipur Hall, and it's around digital development. So thank you again. Thank you for the opportunity. It's a privilege to be here to moderate the session, and I'd love to catch up with anyone during our lunch and the rest of the program. Have a good day ahead. Thank you.